Hey, greetings everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Plan B Success. Who we have with us today is Brooke Lively, who's the president and founder of Cathedral Capital, all the way from Texas. Now, what Brooke does with her company is she's so focused on small businesses and making sure that they succeed. They grow their revenues, and then they come out succeeding in the value that they want to provide out there to their clients. Now, Brooke has also been several other things. So she's had a corporate career. She's worked with consulting companies. She's actually helped start up and support a law firm at a point in time. She's written several books as well. She's a CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst as well. So she's been there, done that. And now she's focused on small businesses and making sure that they come out successful. So let's welcome Brooke. Brooke, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on today.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. So in your own words, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, this was so funny when we came across Plan B podcast. We're like, okay, this could not be more perfect for me. I went to, and I don't know if it was my high school or my college, both were single sex, both were all girls. And one of them at some point sent us a statistic that said the average woman will have 5 to 7 careers in their lifetime, not 5 to 7 jobs, but 5 to 7 careers. And I think I'm living that. So when we talk about Plan B, I told you right before we started, I may be on Plan D, E, or F. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that everything you do brings you to where you are. And even if you get off track, even if you've got this plan in your mind and it's so clear, and somehow you get bumped off track, that really the experience that you gain while you're off track will move you forward even better. So I graduated from college, had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought originally that I wanted to go into kind of investment banking and finance. My best friend's father, when I was in high school, was doing amazing things like green mailing Disney. And he was the one that put Michael Eisner in the job. So like I was up close and personal to like the roaring 80s and everything that was going on in finance. But when I graduated from college, I had kind of lost track of that, didn't know what I wanted to do. I went into retail. I was in retail for a while. I did a little bit in the hotel industry. And then I became someone's personal assistant. And I was really stinking good at that. But then, that's kind of a hard life. So then I went back into retail. And then at 35, I decided to go to grad school, which is a little late. Thought I was going to do marketing, ended up with an MBA with a double concentration in corporate finance and investments. And that's when I went to work for the hedge fund. Because when you have a CFA, that's what you do. You work for a hedge fund, right? Mm-hmm. Well, and how funny that there I was at 37, where I thought I wanted to be when I was 17. Well, turns out it wasn't what I thought it was. Ended up, my father likes to shed his law partners every 7 to 10 years. So he shed his law partners and asked me if I could help him set up a new firm, which I did. We grew it to over $1 million in just over a year. And then I kind of hit a wall. And I thought, this isn't where I want to be for the rest of my life. And I had hired a consultant to help us with sales and marketing. And his clients started coming to me and saying, can you do for us what you're doing for your family's firm? And I thought, yes, I can, in fact, bring data into professional services to help the owners of professional services companies make better decisions through data by serving as their CFO. So what we do is we help make small companies more profitable.
Awesome.
And so is that Plan D or E? What do we think?
Whatever you want to call it. I had also read that you were more interested in family-owned businesses. Is there a particular reason for that?
I do like family-owned businesses. I think that they present a special set of problems. When you are working with family, you cannot, for example, shed your partners. It makes for a really awkward Thanksgiving. And so it's a different set of problems. It's a little more unique. There's a little bit more of the interpersonal that's in there. And I really like that.
And then, as far as Cathedral Capital is concerned, when did you form the company and what are the services you provide?
Oh my gosh, when did we form? I think we formed in 2013. Really kind of came into our own in 2015. And we, like I said, we help make small companies more profitable by serving as their CFO. So those companies that are between 1 and 20 million, that aren't big enough to pay, someone $150,000 or $200,000 a year to sit in their office all day, every day. I mean, first of all, they can't afford it. And second of all, that person would be bored stiff. There's not enough for them to do. But those companies still need that strategic advice. They need that financial knowledge, because most of them went into business because they were passionate about something, not because they wanted to look at spreadsheets and P&Ls. So we come in and we take over that seat on a fractional basis to help you become more profitable.
Awesome. Now, you've had, a pretty colorful career and things that you have actually experimented with and gone back to school, and as well as then gone back to work. And it's more like every time you thought, hey, this is the dream job or the dream career, and then you popped the bubble and then moved on to the next one.
Yep.
Throughout your career, what's been most interesting for you? Some of the jobs that you've done, some of the companies that you've worked with, what did you find was the thing that was pulling you, attracting you toward itself?
I think I've learned some amazing things at the companies I've worked for. I worked for the Ritz-Carlton, which is absolutely known throughout the world for its customer service. I also worked for Nordstrom, which has that same approach. I think one of the most interesting jobs that taught me about teamwork was when I was an assistant, and I was an assistant to Ethel Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy's widow. And it was in that moment and in that job that I really learned you can't do it alone. And it takes a lot of people, and it takes a wide breadth of knowledge. And so that was a really fun job. And I did, I got to meet everybody. And yes, Senator Kennedy would walk in. Mrs. Kennedy was notorious for not keeping assistants for very long. And I stayed for a really long time. And, Senator Kennedy would walk in and he'd be like, man, she's still here. I could see it on his face. He's like, wow. So I got to meet not only the family, but all the people that were in their circle. And so I met presidents and world leaders, and that was a lot of fun. And then, the hedge fund taught me about deep analysis, because I was an analyst, and I learned that in grad school too. How do you dig down and find the root cause of things, but still be able to pull out far enough to see the forest? How can we go inspect the bark on the tree and still come out and see how that tree is part of this larger organism? And I think that that's one of the things that's really important for what we do in drawing those conclusions. What is it? How does A relate to B to C? And how can we tie those in, and how can we harness them to be more productive?
That's a great point. The ability to go deep down and see the mark on the tree, but at the same time scale back and see the forest for what it is. I personally believe that's a rare skill, which is highly in demand, and not a lot of people get it. What's been your experience?
It is hard. It's hard to hire that. Um, and what we're finding is it really is hard to hire that. And so what we have started doing is, instead of asking one person to serve all those roles, we have begun to build teams for our clients. So our client gets the CFO, more of the strategy. And then there's also an analyst that goes and digs and like microscope on the bark, trying to figure out what makes the tree grow the way it grows, and then feeds that information to the CFO. And because I think really the secret sauce for a CFO is making those connections and is being able to see the big picture and find the drivers. So that's why we started creating a team.
What do you think is the fun part of what you do?
Oh, for me personally,
Mm-hmm.
it's that moment, whether I'm speaking on stage or whether I'm talking to a client, that moment where you see the light bulb go off in their head and you're like, they just got that. And that one thing that they just got and they understand, they're going to implement, and it's going to make a difference in their company. And like, that's just the best.
Mm-hmm. Since you work with small businesses, which, obviously when someone is coming to you, they have a challenge that they're trying to find a solution for. And it's a small business, and a small business is very prudent about how they spend. So
Mhm.
how do you make your case? How do you make your case where that, your services, the services that you bring to them are vital in order for them to scale or step ahead?
Absolutely. I mean, it's super easy. Very often in the sales call, I will make a change in their company that will more than pay for us for the year. Just right there.
Mm-hmm.
So they start to see, because we've seen so much, because we've done this so often, because we are working in this small niche of companies, we can diagnose things really quickly. And there's a great phrase: little hinges swing big doors. And we know where all those little hinges are, all those little tweaks that we can make. One of the things that we're known for, most of our companies collect over 90% of what they bill. And in service-based companies, that's a really high collection rate. The
Mm-hmm.
average is closer to 75 or 80. Okay, I promise you, if you're doing $1 million and I raise your collection rate by 15%, oh, I have paid for us in spades.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. Now, in terms of you finding your clients or your clients finding you, how does that work?
We find our clients a couple of different ways. We find our clients through client referrals. Our clients tend to stay with us for a long time. We are a big champion of them, and they in return are a big champion of us. So most of our clients come through referrals. I also do a lot of speaking. I wrote a book last year, and I have another one coming out in July. And so I speak on that topic a lot, and that's really good for us. And then podcasts, interestingly, we have found occasionally people will find us on a podcast, but more often they find us somewhere else and then they Google and they find podcasts that I've been on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, have you had clients that have come back to you and requested services on other dimensions, for instance, operations or client management, or some of these other dimensions besides just finance?
So here's what's interesting. Money touches every single part of your business.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a thing in your business that doesn't involve money. So yeah, do we talk about operations? Absolutely. We're going to talk to you about workflows. We're going to talk to you about billing goals. We're going to talk to you about those things that keep your company productive. We spend a lot of time on HR issues. We find that really one of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs have is, as they start to approach that $1 million mark, they're spending less time doing in their business, and they're spending more time on their business. So instead of working in the business, they're working on the business. And working on the business requires leadership skills that most of them don't have. So yeah, we spend time on leadership skills for the owner, but also helping them and teaching them how to bring the rest of their team along. Because they can't just invest in their leadership skills, they need to invest in the leadership skills of the people who will eventually run that company. So yeah, we do a lot. We look at marketing. I can't fix your marketing, but I can pinpoint exactly where your marketing problem is.
All
I
right.
can say your verbiage is wrong. So yeah, we touch everything.
All right. Now, the books that you mentioned that you authored, and especially the six key numbers series, talk to us about your books.
So the book really came, I was at an EO meeting, entrepreneurs organization, and one of the guys said, okay, imagine this, you're on a fabulous 5-star desert island. There's no radio, no TV, no internet, no phone. Once a week, a supply boat comes from the mainland and it brings new guests, picks up the guests that are leaving, supplies, and you can have the captain hand you a piece of paper with 3 pieces of information on it. What 3 pieces of information would you need to know whether you could stay another week or not? And that really started the quest. What were those 3 pieces of information? Is it 3? Is it 5? Is it 40? Is it 14? Like, what was it? And so my team and I really worked on this for years, and we came up with 6. There's 6 key numbers that you need to know. 4 of them are forward-looking, and 2 of them help you get back on track. And if you were on the desert island and the captain came and he handed you a piece of paper with these 6 pieces of information on it, you could absolutely make the decision whether you stay or not, because you'll really have your finger on the pulse of your business. And so once we developed it, we realized that we needed to talk about this. So we wrote the book. I wrote the book. And the first one was specifically for lawyers. And the one we're releasing this year is for entrepreneurs.
Awesome. So why is this a series? Are there more books coming in this?
There are more books coming. I don't know what the next one will be. We have talked about working with SaaS companies, service as a software. We've talked about chiropractors. We've talked about therapy practices. It's just kind of, we've talked about marketing firms a lot. We work with a number of marketing firms, but we don't want to come out with a book until we are so incredibly expert in that industry. So we're exploring which next industry we're going to really delve deep.
So when you mention the 6 key numbers, and then you're mentioning, these different, verticals, so to speak, do the numbers change by, it's the same numbers, right?
Yes, they're basically the same numbers. They're going to be a few little tweaks and changes. So for instance, when we talk about law firms, we're going to talk about we're going to talk about case management. Okay. And we're going to look for the key number we're going to look for in that area is net new cases. When we're talking about entrepreneurs, the verbiage changes. Same numbers, but the verbiage changes. So engagement-based KPIs. What is the average price, average length, and average value of your engagement? And instead of looking for net new cases, we're looking for net new engagements.
All right.
So the numbers are very universal.
Now, there was also another book that you co-authored back in 2012 around controlling, protecting, and monetizing assets in dispute. What was that about?
That is back early on, we did some receiverships. I did some receiverships, and this is where you come in to a company where there is a dispute generally between the owners. So this goes back to a little bit of that family-owned thing. And generally what has happened is the minority owners think that in some way, shape, or form, the person running the company is wasting company assets. So they sue, and the court comes in, and the court actually assumes ownership of the company and puts in a receiver to run it on behalf of the court. Since nobody can agree, there's now an independent third party. So yes, that book, Controlling what, I can't even remember the name of that book.
Controlling, protecting, and monetizing
Protecting,
assets.
that's
Yes.
the one I keep forgetting. Controlling, protecting, and monetizing assets in dispute is really the book in the state of Texas on how to run a receivership. It's always funny when I have judges that are like, I really needed your book because, I had this receivership and I wasn't sure what was happening. So yeah, I did that a long time ago.
So where do people find your books?
Amazon.
Awesome. All right. And you've said that your company was established around 2013, came into itself by 15, and now you've seen what has happened last year with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
How was business last year, and what have you learned during this pandemic timeframe?
I think what we have learned is that, and it's something that we knew, but it was definitely confirmed, most business owners don't have control over the financials of their business. When the pandemic started and all of a sudden they needed to have really good financials to be able to apply for the PPP, all their books needed to be in order. Mm-hmm. Most companies across the US didn't have that. They didn't have reliable books. They did not have a relationship with their banker, which is incredibly important. And they weren't prepared to move quickly. We had clients that, because that's what we do, they were ready to go. We had clients that got amazing deals. So for example, the EIDL loan, the EIDL, mm-hmm. which is a loan, it's like 3%, it's a 30-year loan. Well, they were capping it theoretically at $250,000. Well, the first people that got through got $500,000. So our clients got $500,000 going into the pandemic because they were on the ball and they were on top of it. And we were on top of it. And then all of a sudden, after it was open for like 4 or 5 days, they took the cap down to 250. They have now since raised it again. But that agility, the knowing what you're doing and having the confidence to move forward, I think is really what was exposed. The lack of that was really exposed across a lot of different businesses. And I think it caused some people to wake up and realize that they needed a little bit more help.
Where do people find you? If they're interested in your services or to learn more about your company?
I think the easiest way to find us is our website. It's cathcap.com, CATHCAP.com. And okay. You can email us, you can call us, everything's right there.
Awesome. Hey, Brooke, this has been a pleasure, hosting you, talking to you about your company and then your own personal journey, the many pivots that you've taken to get to where you are today. Before I let you go, one takeaway for the listeners, anything that you'd like to share from your experiences?
Yeah, I think it's really that, kind of as I said in the beginning, if you get off track, don't beat yourself up about it. There is something to learn from every job you have, from every step you take. And it is amazing how the things that I learned in retail are so applicable in finance. So don't beat yourself up and really approach everything as a learning experience.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your story and wish you the very best as you make progress.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me on.